to Rockin' Kentucky Blue, the podcast where we are serious about our Cats. Join two card-carrying Blue Rockin' members of the Big Blue Nation as they keep you up to date on the latest happenings of the University of Kentucky Wildcats. Here are your hosts, one calm member of the sports media, Michelle Mamba Brown, and one crazy fan, Jay Hayes.
Welcome to Rockin' Kentucky Blue, episode 51. I miss music fading out while I start talking. I really do miss that. Yeah. Well, you got to fix that.
And this is 52.
It's all 52.
All about hoops.
It's all about the hoops and hoops.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to say 52, but I've been sleep deprived this week, Jay.
I know.
But he's home.
That's a good thing. That's a very good thing.
We're talking about my grandson who had surgery this week, and about this time last night, my daughter's texted me and she said, he won't giggle. He just won't giggle. He's trying, but right when he gets ready to, so you can tell he fights it and then he stops. And I said, it's because he knows if he laughs, Mama might stop giving him those real sweet, sympathetic head rubs. He got to still pretend but he finally started laughing last night because he couldn't stand it anymore. Right. So I like to try to tell him, like, look, boy, if you get better, you get home, you get to your own bed, because when you're in this bed, there exists the possibility a nurse can come in at any time, grab your foot and jab a needle in it to get blood out, because they do that to you. That doesn't happen at home.
Right.
And he finally was like, well, all right. Okay, yeah.
Jerry.
There's Jerry.
Jerry joined the show.
Cameo by Jerry. Now you can disappear, bud.
So let me ask you: Are you screaming NIT yet?
No. I never scream NIT.
Okay, let me ask you this: did you see my prediction before the Georgia game?
Yeah.
And what?
Did he actually get there?
I'm just saying.
Did he actually get there?
I mean,
did he actually get there?
He didn't get the 20 points.
Okay, there we go.
So for those of you watching, I predicted Brandon Boston to get 20 points.
But he didn't. But he did have what I would say was arguably his best game as a Wildcat.
Yeah.
Which was funny because everybody, you ought to be starting Dante. You got to be starting Dante. So they start Dante, then Brandon comes out.
Yeah.
Which just goes to show, no matter how much the fans want to think that they're smarter than John Calipari, this team, they don't. I think Keon summed it up. They just don't understand how hard you have to fight.
Yeah.
For every minute of every game. And he's like, I keep telling them and telling them and telling them. And it's not like that they don't try. And it's not like they don't care. Oh, that's the one I've read this week. I don't read comments. That was actually a regular tweet, not in a comment thing. Because I haven't read comments in any posts because I finally follow my own advice and I feel much better about it. But we've had teams before, but of course we've always had the luxury of having at least 2 or 3 returning players that know.
Yeah.
That waited until February to figure it out.
Yeah.
But they had people ahead of them that didn't take till February. So you didn't have this big dip. I said, and it's not a matter, like, don't tell me that they're lazy. Don't tell me that they don't try. Don't tell me they don't care.
I will tell you this. They're hard to watch.
They are indeed.
Very hard to watch.
Because I see the effort, and then I see like 3 or 4 times up and down the court, man, boom, boom. And you're like, yeah. And then What do I do with the basketball? Wait a minute. Coach was saying if where am I I'm standing here. So when
Right.
I'm here, if he's there, coach said I said they're doing a freaking calculus problem,
Yeah.
which they don't have time to do in a possession. But anyhow, we don't want to get too deep into all this because see, you want to jump into this because you predicted something almost
Yeah.
right.
I mean,
Almost.
I just wanted to flex on them to let them know that, I do know what's going on. I just,
No, he got lucky because
no.
he predicted 10 games last year that Nick was going to score 30. Let's get real.
Okay.
And after he started predicting that, Nick's point per game production went down every single game. I just want to point that out that Jay saying you're going to do great things
Okay.
is usually the kiss of death. That's all I'm saying.
In the last game, I think he had 29 points.
But after the 6 before that, he had been averaging like 24 points a game. Then he went down to 20 to 17 to 14. And I'm like, Jay, just stop. And then finally you predicted 29. Because I said get off the daggone 30.
I'm
so
just
don't
saying,
No, I'm just saying that had I not literally done or figuratively done a little bitch slap at you, he never would have scored over 20 again.
I'll say sometimes I do this to see where fans are at. Of course, and I posted that, and a lot of fans were like, no way. He gets nowhere close. No.
I said stop jinxing.
Right. I'll tell you this. All the people
you want to tell me all this? You want to tell me this? Tell me this. Tell me this. Tell me this. You said the Cats were going to win by 6 over Auburn. Just saying.
Should have.
No, it's no.
Should have.
What I'm saying is a prediction isn't right because it should have happened.
Right. Yeah, I was wrong. But it should have. Wildcats should have beat.
Well, they should have.
They should have beat Auburn, and they should have blew Georgia out. That's why I asked, are you on the NIT bus now saying, because that was a dagger.
No, that I'm not on the NIT bus. I'm on the if we go anywhere, it'll be a miracle.
Yeah, it will. I mean,
which is a shame with everything right there in Indianapolis this year. But again, back off the basketball.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, but it's all
back off the basketball. It is. Well, except an important thing happened in football this past week.
And what was that?
Well, it was a player that I got to get a lot of exposure to because he played all of his high school games about 6 blocks from my house.
Yeah.
And on Friday nights, I could sit out on my front deck. I mean, close enough to the football field, I could hear the PA announcer, so I could tell when he scored touchdowns. And then he committed to UK, and I'm like, this is so cool. He'll be close to home. He'll have, and he'll draw in because he had a really good, strong fan base here.
Yeah.
It'll be good for the program. It's good for him.
Really good talent.
And then he's like, Bob,
snubbed.
Not going to Nebraska.
Yeah.
And look what they did to him in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Did they use his talent properly?
I mean, he had a lot of yards, a couple touchdowns.
But I don't think they used him to his full potential.
No. We'll see. We'll see this year. Will Kentucky use him to his full potential?
Well, we got a new offensive coordinator.
That's true.
And I think when you kind of shake things up there, and I think Stoops, when he went to I say extreme, but his other changes at offensive coordinator were not so much because people were pressuring to have a change done.
Right.
His others were ones that he had a vision. He wanted somebody to help complete this vision. And now he found out maybe his vision as he envisioned it originally maybe isn't the way to go. So maybe I bring somebody else in with a whole fresh look. and we get over this hump which, by the way, it would be the 2018 football team. They posted a 10-3 record, which was the program's best record since going 10-1 in. So we got all rah-rah, hoo-hoo, we've arrived, but we haven't quite. We got a little hump. We can't seem to beat Georgia hump. We finally got the Florida thing off our back. We got we can beat Tennessee at home, but beating Tennessee at Tennessee, get another one of those under the belt, good thing.
Yeah.
We got to consistently be beating those teams. And as long as I'm just giving you trivia, the 2018 Kentucky volleyball team, the women, they always specify women, but there's no men's volleyball in the SEC. So,
right.
And I'm sure that's a whole lot to do with Title IX, having the scholarship opportunities equal for men and women. So,
yeah.
Anyway, in 2018, the volleyball team had a 23-game winning streak during the season. They ended up posting a 26-5 record. Not too shabby. And they're getting ready to kick off their spring season here soon.
Yeah.
Ranked up in the number 3?
I think so. Wow.
There was other big news this week. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. The rifle team lost.
What? See, this is news to me. And we have a guest.
Well, he's early.
Well, when you're Hoops Weiss, you can be early.
Well, you just talk about a zero buildup. That's
no, I have a buildup.
No, that's not a buildup. That's not a buildup. You're supposed to be giving teasers. I thought I taught you better.
Yeah.
He says he learns things from the little guys like us. And I thought, what could he possibly learn from us? And then I remembered Mike DeCourcy was here 2 weeks ago, and Mike DeCourcy could have learned if he made the same picks for the championship game that I did, he would have appeared a whole lot smarter.
Right.
So, anyhow, do your build up now that you kind of ruined the surprise.
If you want to talk sports, this is the man you want to talk to.
Ain't a neighborhood in Philly that I can't go. That's a Fendi, for real.
Legendary, 41 years, award-winning sports writer.
I was there when Michael Jordan made a shot in the final moments to give Dean Smith his first national championship. I've gotten a chance to see people like Tim Duncan, the late Len Bias, in 1992 in Kentucky writing a book, and frankly had my heart broken when Christian Laettner made a shot in the last second to beat Kentucky in overtime.
The one, the only, Hoops Weiss.
Hey guys, how are you?
Everybody always laughs after they get one of Jay's musical introductions.
That's very sweet. I appreciate it, Jay.
Oh, no problem at all. So before we get into basketball, we have to know, where did you pick up the name Hoops at?
I got that in college because I was a gym rat and I attended every game in the world. And the guy named Sandy Padway, who was a columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer and later on became a professor at Columbia Journalism School, gave me the name. And it stuck, surprisingly enough, for close to 50 years.
Wow.
Well, I'm glad they didn't call you like Mop Bucket or something, that.
Well, yeah, so am I. Yeah. Thanks, pal.
Right.
I mean, Hoops is a cool name, and when somebody picks up a book about a basketball coach or a basketball player or any other sports figure, and the author is Hoops Weiss, you get instant credibility with the nickname.
Yeah, well, people have been very, very good to me over the years. I've been very, very fortunate. I love college basketball. I've been going to doubleheaders at the Palestra in Philadelphia since I was 10 years old. Always wanted to be a sports writer. I'm not sure whether I did that because I wanted to see the games or because I wanted to write about the games. I kind of suggest it was probably both, guys.
Right. There's several teams around there. Did you have a favorite team around the area?
I kind of liked all of the Big Five schools and kind of rooted for them all because all of them played in the same place on the campus of the University of Pennsylvania. I had my heart broken a number of times back in the 60s. Teams would get so far and they couldn't make that last shot. I mean, I have to tell you, I was probably the most surprised person in the world the year that Villanova won in '85. Final Four, that was the year the Final Four was down in Lexington at Rupp. And they were an 8th seed, and Rolly Massimino coached 6 perfect games. It's pretty amazing. And we had a lot of people who were Kentucky fans rooting for Villanova because their nickname was the Cats.
Yeah.
Well, and they were the underdog. We when
yeah.
we're not a factor in the tournament, we will cheer for the underdogs like crazy.
You usually are a factor in the tournament. Maybe not this year, but you know what? If you think about John since he's been at Kentucky, I mean, his first year they get to the Final 8. The next few years they could have won in 11, could have won in. Did win in 12, could have won in 14, could have won in 15, could have gotten to a Final Four and won in 17, probably could have gotten back to the Final Four in 19. So he's always had teams that have been right there. This team is probably the exception to every rule he's ever had because I've never seen him have a sub-500 team, guys.
Really frustrated right now, I believe. And, I mean, I'll just dive straight in. Does Kentucky have a shot at making the tournament now?
I worry about it. I think we'll find out quickly. Their next 5 games are just brutal. I mean, 3 of the teams that they play, Alabama, Texas, and Tennessee, are all capable of going to a second weekend. I think we'll have to find out how good they are. They have LSU Saturday at home. I wish that they had more time. This is if you take a look at teams that make a living off reloading as opposed to rebuilding, they are all struggling this year. Duke is struggling. Carolina is struggling. Kentucky is struggling. You put an awful lot of pressure on the young freshmen to produce immediately. And John had a team that starts the season out. He's got 4 freshman starters at one point and a transfer, Olivia Sarr, who really doesn't know anybody on the team. And it's been a struggle. They haven't really shot the ball great. I thought Boston would be a little bit better. I thought that Askew would make a stronger decision in terms of playing the position he's playing. I'm one of these people who still believe that you can win games at Kentucky if you play Kentucky kids. I mean, Dante Allen had 7 threes the night they beat Mississippi State. I'm one of those people that wish John would see it for what it is, maybe recruit more Kentucky kids that would stay around. Kentucky-bred players tend to play at a much higher level if they wear the blue. It's just the way it is. I mean, we saw it with Cameron Mills. I mean, back in the year that Kentucky won in '98. I mean, we've seen it. Look, I was down there in '92 when most of their team, with the exception of Mashburn, were all Kentucky kids, and they played their hearts out every game. I mean, listen, I'd still like to have that last 2.5 seconds back and guard the inbounds pass, but it's one of those things that happens because I honestly believe they win that game, they win the national championship. And now, instead of just being a great story, it's a great story.
Well, I still maintain Christian Laettner should never have been in the game to make that shot after he did.
After the Timberlake. Yeah, that was, and nothing happened after the play. That was a difficult situation. Kentucky couldn't have played much better that night. And after Sean Wood shoots that floater to give them the lead in overtime, I'm thinking this is actually going to happen. I mean, Leitner did not miss a shot that night. This is one of those things. I mean, you could never predict that he'd go 10 for 10, 10 for 10 for 30. It was an unbelievable performance. And you don't want to take anything away from those Kentucky kids, because if you think about it, we're talking about the end of the bench a couple years ago. Those kids stuck it out, and I was in Rupp the night they hung the banner with their 4 names on it, and I thought that was a special time. It's one of the few times where I've seen Kentucky lose a game, and the fans were still in love with the team. I mean, I know that this is a difficult state. I mean, there's more passion for the sport in the Commonwealth than anywhere else in the country. And I've been everywhere in the country. I mean, it's the only place that you can go, guys, where they can actually quote you chapter and verse on every big game that's been played there. When I was down there, I had people who were talking about the 1958 Fiddlin' Five like it was yesterday. I mean, it means so much to the people down there, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with the anger that has taken place this year. There's a lot of bitterness when the team isn't playing well, and I'm not sure if it's bitterness or it's just passion. I think that they want the team to do well so much that it's difficult when they struggle.
Well, I think this year some of the bitterness, I think it's much like why the team is struggling. There's a variety of factors. A lot of the fans are frustrated with the one and done thing. They say they don't get to know the players. I disagree with that, but of course I'm in the media, so I mean I get a chance to cover them. So you get a little bit more opportunity to get to know them at post-game interviews and media events and everything. So you get to know them on a different level. But the other thing this year, of course, starting to peak right when it's, right the week before the tournament last year, we've got a team that has a very real chance of going deep, and then bam, you just abruptly, you get the rug pulled out from under you. Then you get stuck in a lockdown for months. Then you don't get Big Blue Madness. You don't get Fan Day. You don't get this. You don't get that. You don't get your exhibition games, the blue and white game. And so all these things where the team would get to know one another better and have opportunities to develop a little bit of cohesion. The fans didn't get that. So now now, mind you, I would like to point out in August, if you follow the Big Blue Nation, if we get any kind of basketball at all, I don't care how bad it is, I'll be cheering. And then it turned out bad. And they want to fire Coach Cal. They want to fire Mitch Barnhart. They want to take the team, put them on a wagon, and drag them through the mud. It's just like I said, if you maybe had the pandemic out, had a regular preseason, things would be so different.
Well, I think they really miss their fans, guys. I mean, to this day, I don't think there's anything like the game day level of pageantry that you experience at a Kentucky game when the Big Blue takes the floor. I mean, you get goosebumps just watching him. And, I grew up in Philadelphia where you have certain teams you really enjoy watching play. But down here, I mean, you get a real feeling for the way this team plays. And, I think that a young team really misses that, because games that could go either way, particularly home games, the crowd tends to lift this team up maybe more than other places.
And that's something we have discussed on this show before. When they signed up, say most of them attended Madness the year before that they got here. And when you look at 22,000 people that will attend a practice, that's not even really a practice if you get right down to it. But I mean, the Madness is just an animal all among it by itself. So you get that just for showing up. You have got people screaming and chanting your name, and that's the image. That's what I want as a basketball player. And then you come out and you have 10,000 cardboard cutouts.
Right.
Somehow I don't think it's the same thing, but I mean they do big events like Senior Day, Midnight Madness really well down there. They really celebrate the sport well. I don't know that that happens uh, very often at other schools. Kansas is probably the closest to it. I think that their uh, Midnight at the Fog and their home game uh, atmosphere is very much like Kentucky. But Kentucky. When I was down here, I mean, Kentucky doesn't. It's a state that doesn't always have a lot of money, and a lot of their fans have never been to Rupp to watch a game, but they love to go to work in the factories in Kentucky or the mines in Eastern Kentucky on a Monday if the Cats win, just to talk about the game. And when I was there, if you went into the mountains at night, they wouldn't turn the lights off until Kay would say goodnight. I mean, that's just the way it was. I mean, you don't get that type of feeling anywhere else. And it's given me a soft spot for the program. I have to tell you, which makes it hard it makes it hard to watch when they don't play well. I thought last night was a difficult game to watch because of the way that it ended. It's a game that they had won and they let slip away in the last couple seconds. I'm hoping they can cut down the turnovers. I mean, they had 17, and they're not just turnovers, but they gave up 25 points in that game. And I'm hoping they can shoot it a little bit better from three. I mean, their starters last night only had 16 points combined. Now, they did have guys come off the bench that gave them a lift to Boston and Jackson. But I do think that, you would like to see a little bit more cohesion. And I think Michelle's absolutely right. I mean, you need the extra time. You need the non-league games against weaker teams, just so you can build a level of confidence up as you enter the season. I mean, John's not afraid to play anybody, as we found out. But with a young team, there's still there's more of a fragile feeling about this group than there maybe has been about any other freshman group that I've seen him bring in.
Right. And Michelle brought up fans too. Coming into the season, I thought it would help Kentucky because really no one had home court advantage. And I thought that could work in Kentucky's favor, but it's looking.
Every game has become a neutral site game in a lot of ways. And
right.
If you have to travel, I mean, in a pandemic, you still have got to go through testing every day, and you still have got to go through getting on a private plane, even though you have that advantage. And you still have to go, even though a lot of teams are actually traveling the day of a game, it's still a different location, a different place, and it makes it hard. And when you play at Rupp, I mean, it's like I said, you can see it outside when people are out scalping tickets, or people are out before the game, or people are at the Hyatt before the game starts, and you can feel it. I mean, I love to be around teams where you can actually feel the enthusiasm of the people around them, and feel the energy of the players when they play. I don't know that we have that this year because of unforeseen circumstances.
There's a lot of things we don't see, and you're right. There is a feeling when you walk into Rupp. Now I've been going to games in Rupp since the year it opened. Not a whole lot because I was a poor kid, but I'd get a game here, a game there, and then when Cameron Mills was kind enough to add me as a writer for his website, then I got to cover games for free. So
that's great.
I've seen more games in the last 4 years than I saw the rest of my life, I think, in person. But even as in the media, I mean, I always get there early because I go in and I can sit down on front row seat, or I can sit on the Kentucky bench. You just close your eyes and you feel that energy. It's there before the fans come in. It's there before the players take the court. But when the players come in, it's, the little goosebumps and everything. And it breaks my heart for these players that they're not getting to get that experience this year because in spite of what some of the fans say, they're lazy. They're not trying. They don't care. They just want to go to the NBA, blah, 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 blah. That's not – this is a good bunch of kids. And not one time throughout all of this adversity and the losses, there has not been one incident of finger pointing or infighting or, there was a little bit with Cameron Fletcher who, you're going to leave for, a few days, and he did, and he came back and has been the poster boy for goodwill and harmony since then. But usually when you've got a team that struggles to this extent, you would expect some locker room issues or he's not doing his job and he's not doing his job. And we haven't got that. And that's why I'm saying I love these kids because I know they want it and they're trying. They just it hasn't clicked yet.
Well, it's hard for 18 and 19-year-old teenagers. I mean, I think sometimes we forget about that. We think that they're already pros. And I will say this much. John's whole modus operandi is to recruit players he thinks can play at the same level. When he walks into a house, he takes he takes a binder, he opens it up. They have the kid's name, they have the money that he's making a year, and it's an unbelievable sales pitch. And he once told me his ultimate goal was to have a fourth of the NBA be Kentucky players. I don't know if there's that many, but I'll tell you what, last year they had 27. This year they have at least 21. And their young players like Booker and Hero have become stars at an early age. Tyrese Maxey has become a star at an early age. So he obviously does a good job training them to play at the next level. I was a little disturbed by De'Aaron Fox's comments on the radio recently when he said that John doesn't care about winning. He recruits players that he thinks he can turn into pros, and he just feels if he has that much talent, we'll end up winning anyway. And it's probably true, but it's funny. Down in Kentucky, they still care about the team and they still want to hang banners. And I think it's difficult the expectations are always high here. It's just the way it is. But, they have built a team that can contend for a championship in most years. Who knows what would have happened if they played last season? I mean, it's hard for me to say. They might have gotten back to a Final Four. And once you get back to the Final Four, it's a grab back. Anything can happen.
I think, I guess I know where Fox was going with the comments. I think he did not speak. I don't think his word choice was the best it could have been. But, I think that he was saying, if you get the best players that you can get, and you know how to coach them, then you're going to more often than not win a whole lot of basketball games than if you take the marginal players that are going to stay 3 years so that the fans can get to know them, may or may not pan out. I think that it's kind of a coin toss there. You want to get if you don't get the best talent, the fans are mad. Why'd you let that one slip through? Why did you let that one go by?
Yeah.
So,
if you take a look at teams who won the national championship recently, most of the teams have upperclassmen. Take a look. Duke has been to the Final Four once in the last 9 years. And they have been in direct competition with Kentucky for the best players in the country, the most one and dones in any given year. My only hope is that he could not only take the best kids from out of the country, but he could add to the roster some kids from Kentucky. Look, I'd love to see him recruit Ryan Shepard this year. The kid's averaging 41 a game. And he would be a beloved figure. But I don't know that it's going to happen. And the kid will probably end up at Iowa. But I still think that those are the type of kids I think you take a chance on, especially if they can make shots, because it's become a shooter's game, guys.
Well, we're lacking those this year.
I know
Yeah.
it's been.
And it's
This was
crazy
painful.
because
How many shots did we miss inside 5 feet last night?
yeah, and you hear Cal saying, you know, I'm watching these kids make these shots in practice. It's just not translating to the game.
No,
So-
I agree. The 3-point percentage is not great, and this is a team that should be scoring closer to 80 than 65, guys.
There's some nights I'm not sure we get to 55.
Well, I mean, you know, I mean, it hasn't happened. And I mean, 65 is usually the magic number. I mean, if they get past 65, they usually have a pretty good chance to win. We'll see what happens. I mean, you know, I mean, look, you can't tell somebody not to root for a team they care so much about. You can't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I've learned that a long time ago. Everybody should be entitled to really care about the team that they watch.
Right.
I think this is a classic example.
Well, switching directions real quick. Maybe conferences might not have conference tournaments, and or teams opting out that are a shoe in the NCAA tournament. And also, what do you think about the NCAA tournament being all in Indianapolis?
Well, first of all, I think they'll probably play conference tournaments because of the money involved.
Right.
I mean, now it's the first time I've heard of teams opting out of conference tournaments, and to maintain their ranking so it doesn't affect their seed in the NCAAs. But I think that a team should. I mean, when you sign a television contract, you sign a contract because you're going to collect a fair amount of money from the TV rights, and that includes conference tournament play. So my guess is that even though a lot of conferences are talking about moving their tournaments from the big arenas into smaller sites like the Atlanta 10 and the Colonial Conference, I still think a lot of the big conferences will choose to play in the big buildings. I know the Big East is locked into playing in Madison Square Garden this year. And I don't see the SEC moving their tournament out of a bigger site. Maybe they'd move it to an 18,000 seat building, but I don't know that they're ready to totally give up on the idea of not playing in a big venue. As far as the tournament, my biggest fear about the tournament is that we're going to start playing and a team is going to test positive. Then what happens? Do you forfeit your next game because television's got a limited window? I'm not sure what to think about that. I do know that they're trying to play in a contained atmosphere that's as close to a bubble as that they can find, where they put all of the teams in the 3 Marriott properties that are closest to Lucas Oil Stadium and put them in separate floors with security so that you can't wander all over the place. I don't think that these teams will have a vaccine by the time the tournament gets here. I wish I was wrong, but I don't think it's going to happen yet. So I think that a lot of teams are trying to be as careful as they can. Most of the games that are going to be played in Indianapolis are going to be played in the General City area. There are first round games scheduled to be played at Purdue and at Assembly Hall in Indiana, but most of the games are going to be played in town itself. So there's not a lot of travel involved here. The biggest problem you have is you play in a location. After every game, they have to disinfect. So the idea of having a doubleheader one after another is probably limited. I mean, you might play at 12 and then 4 and then 8. And I don't know that they have the schedule itself allows for more than 3 games in a given day, guys.
Well, the other thing that is a different, besides having the entire tournament in one city, is the turnaround between the regional finals and the Final Four. That's a whole different thing. That's an adjustment for teams, I would think.
It is. When this first happened, I thought that maybe there should be a way that you could have 4 regional sites and then seed the teams 1 through 16 and just turn it into 4 regions the way they used to have back in the early 70s. So the families of these kids could actually get to a site and see their kids play. I mean, the NCAA has a rule that allows for the families to come to the Final Four, but first and second round games, not everybody Indianapolis is a central location, but not everybody in the West Coast can get there. And not everybody in the Deep South can get there without an issue. I know people drive everywhere at Kentucky. I mean, 6 hours is nothing if you want to go see Kentucky, Mississippi State. But I do think a lot of these schools are going to be limited in terms of their fans if they don't get some sort of financial help.
Although the flip side of that, having everything in one location lifts that obligation that the NCAA put on itself to try to have geographic ease.
Yeah, they do. No, I agree. I agree with you.
So you can go back 1 through 64.
Yeah, it's one. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna argue with that. I mean, they're willing to give it a shot. I mean, I don't know that this tournament is going to be like any other tournament we've ever watched. I've been toying with the idea of going out for the first couple rounds and going home and then coming back for the Final Four weekend. But I'm still reluctant, A, to get in an airplane, and B, to travel unless I get vaccinated. I'm at an age where I'm older than 60, and I think it puts a lot of people at risk the older you get. I wish I didn't feel that way, but it's just one of those things. I've been to 47 Final Fours. I originally planned to do 50 before I retired. Last year got eliminated. This year is still problematic. And I was going to finish up in New Orleans next year, but obviously that's not going to happen.
Well, even, you mentioned the vaccine, even if they were able to get all of the players in the next 2 weeks, get them a vaccine, they still would have to have a second shot 3 weeks later.
3 weeks later.
It doesn't matter. So, I mean, then you're out of
time.
I
totally agree with you.
Yeah. So that's the whole thing. Even though they are supposedly ramping up production, we've been
getting. Well, I'm going to cross my fingers that more people get vaccinated.
Because our governor got it. He said, "Well, you're not moving fast enough." Well, then he started worked out several things where they've got the football stadium. They have a thing.
Oh, that's great.
And now we've run out of the vaccine. He's had to ask federal government, "Can you double what we're supposed to get?"
Yeah, no, it's happening everywhere, Michelle. I mean,
we started it because they made him the head of the bipartisan group of governors on how best to distribute the vaccination.
Well, I'm all for it if they can come up with the amount of if they can come up with enough vials of vaccine. I'm all for anything that. I mean, this is not a political thing. This is a health. This is strictly a health thing, and I don't want to see any more people die than have to.
Right.
We are absolutely on the same page on that.
Yeah. But to totally flip the script with the name Hoops Weiss, I still got to ask, because all of the sports that you've covered, Olympics, college football, college basketball, NBA, the list goes on. Is college basketball your favorite sport?
By far. I still love the game. I wish some of the players would stay around a little bit longer so the fans could get to know them personally. I mean, the best programs now tend to reload because these players, and no one can blame them for trying to make money off the sport. And it would appear that freshmen have a much better chance to be drafted high than if they stay longer. But I also think, by the same token, I think the longer you stay, the better shot you have to have a longer career. because you have been trained properly. You understand the game. There's a maturity that comes with being around a college program for a long time. I mean, I always thought that the best games were played before we had massive people leaving. I was one of those people for the longest while. I wanted the baseball rule where you could leave after your high school senior year, and if you decided to go to college, it was your choice, but you had to stay 3 years. Now, that's just me personally. I mean, it was your decision. If you didn't want to go to college, you could always go to the G League. You could always play overseas, and then you could apply for the draft the next year. But if you wanted to play college basketball, I think you needed to make some sort of decision to stick around for the long haul.
I think a lot of us agree on that, but that, and for all of the evil that is the NCAA, we all know that it was the NBA that created this mess in the first. Wasn't it even part of the Players Association, like part of their collective bargaining agreement?
Yes, it was. Absolutely.
Which is like just totally nuts that. But anyhow.
Well, you would think that they would want their veterans to get a paycheck for as long as possible.
You'd think.
Instead, they want to reload with younger players they think they can train and turn into great players. But a lot of these guys who are drafted high aren't necessarily getting a second contract. And most general managers are making a decision after your second year as to whether they want to give you a second contract. And that's where all the money is in the second contract, but not everybody gets it.
And that's the one thing that Cal has proven very successful when he gets his players. They get drafted, but and he takes great pride in this. They get that second contract, and
they do.
Anthony Davis. Hello. Let's all retire on Anthony Davis's dime.
Right.
He could probably feed a small city. Yeah, I totally agree. And look, there's a guy who averaged 14 points his freshman year when Kentucky won the championship. Now, he can go out and get 60 in a game right now. There are a lot of Kentucky players who don't necessarily average big numbers in college who blossom into major league scorers. Devin Booker's the classic example. I mean, he's capable of getting 50 in any game.
Well, and he was recruited as a multi-year player, and that's the other thing where Cal gets all this criticism. He does or has in the past. He's demonstrated he has recruited multi-year players that get it. The switch turns on, and they develop, and all of a sudden,
Booker wasn't a starter.
No, I would have liked to see what happened in the Wisconsin game if they played Ulis and Booker instead of the Harrison twins in the last 5 minutes. You might have been looking at 40-0.
Yeah. I agree. A lot of people think that. I mean, it's crazy.
I happen to be one of them because both those kids turned out to be terrific players.
Right. So does Hoops Weiss, the man that has covered college basketball for 8,000 years, the Twitter handle,
it just seems that long, Jay.
Right. Do you have a favorite team?
It's a good question. I really got very close to that 92 team at Kentucky that lost because they were such great kids and they were local kids. And I got to know them all on an individual basis. I mean, and Rick did such a great job with that group. And, I really, really liked the 5 starters on that team. I thought that he maxed out their talent level, I thought, and he did a fabulous job. Listen, like everybody else, I had to wait till 1998 to see him beat Duke in a revenge game in the regional finals. Wayne Turner and Cameron Mills went off in the second half. Yeah, no, I mean, one thing you learn when you spend time down here for a year, you develop the same habits as every Kentucky fan.
Right.
I mean, you can't understand Kentucky basketball if you're not from the state. I don't think you can ever understand the passion that people down here have for it.
Well, Jay keeps saying flipping scripts, or but I think he's misusing. I
flip
think
the
he's
script a lot.
misusing. No, you're misusing the phrase. Is what you're doing. But so I got to tell Jay he's wrong at least 3 times a show.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
otherwise,
That's part of our show. I get. I'm wrong a lot.
Hey,
he really is.
that's you guys' thing, pal.
But the one thing, besides just covering the games and being, with the Philadelphia Daily News, New York Daily News, papers all the way, but you're also a prolific author. I've read at least 4 of your books, I believe.
You are going to heaven. Thank you.
But is it my question? I mean, because I like, I like writing the opinion piece. I can do a feature article, but the whole concept, I was like, man, I could write a book about that. Then I sit down and find out, no, I really can't write a book about that because I can't seem to get all my thoughts organized into a book manner. But you have co-written books with some coaches, other sports figures, and you've written books about people. What's the pros and cons of each approach?
I like doing books with people because I think you only do books with your friends. And when you leave, you want to end up being friends with the person that you write a book about. I mean, it's usually a 50-50 deal, and they have the final say in what goes into the book when you do an as told to book. And it makes them feel like they're part of the process. So that's me personally. And I think coaches are more willing probably to open up to you if they have that trust factor. Once you've done 1 or 2 books and they know, look, I have my own rules about this stuff. I won't quote a guy in a bar. I won't quote a guy over dinner. And I won't quote a guy if it's off the record. I use a tape recorder. When the red light's on, everything is on the record. When it's off, everything is off the record. It's the only way to build up trust. There are so many people that are getting into the business now that are really creatures of social media, and they tend to be in a situation where they want to get it first as opposed to get it right. And that creates its own problems, guys.
That's one of the frustrations that I have all the time. I was like, it's not like it was 20 years ago when getting the scoop was a really big deal. Like, you
Right.
would know.
You're never getting
not a day.
right. You're never getting the scoop anymore because with social media, somebody has it way before you can write it. So the best thing you can do, when I worked in New York, I was writing 4, sometimes 5 columns a week on college sports. And it allows you to have a voice. And a lot of times you can do things to really help people out in the sport and really do things that will give you a point of view. And I found that even if people disagree with you, as long as you don't use that cheap throwaway line, and you can create an argument for your point of view, most people are pretty good about it. I mean, I really have had very few coaches that I haven't had a good relationship with. I've been very, very lucky that way.
Well, see, and that's something like you and Mike DeCourcy, you're both have been my heroes in terms of sports writing. Because even when I don't agree with what you all have written, you both present your side. It's based on fact and your interpretation of the things around that. And it's not like this is how it is and you're wrong and you're stupid if you don't agree with me. Y'all have got something. I've told my guys I can disagree with him, and still my mind is open. I read it. I think it makes me think. It opens a conversation. And we've gotten away from that on social media. It's become, when I disagree, I've got to call you a name.
Yeah, see, I won't do that. And you know what? I'm not always right either. And, a lot of times people will say, well, how about this? And it'll change my mind. That's why I said I learn a lot from followers, to people that follow me. And I always try to respond if I'm on Twitter and something goes on. I'll always try to respond because, look, people are going through a tough time in this pandemic. They're locked into their house. I mean, people want to feel connected. It never hurts to be nice.
It's free, and you never know whose life you impact because you were nice to them that time.
Right.
Yes, I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, if you notice when I write, almost everything I write is sports related. And on Facebook, it's sports related or includes puppies or children. So something that will make people smile and help them get through the day.
I'm famous on Facebook for my really bad puns, although there are some that are quite clever, but most of them are really bad. But why not? Because I don't need another political post. I don't need another argument about the pandemic and what's real and what's a hoax. And I'm over that. So yeah, my grandson, who's 16 months old, pictures of him. My cat, he's got like 2 poses, so I don't do a whole lot of pictures of him. You can only have so many of your cat doing.
Right.
That's the cat. But yeah, puns. That's it. So,
well, with that being said, thank you so much for joining.
Hey, Jay, it's so nice to talk to both of you.
Thank you so much.
You guys have a good night, okay?
Very nice to meet you virtually.
Yeah.
And we so appreciate your time, and you'll continue to be one of my favorite writers, no doubt.
All right, guys. Everybody have a good night in there, okay?
Thank you.
Well. Thank you.
Well, Jay, you're speechless.
Hold on 1 second. All righty.
Now, those of you watching live, when you listen to the podcast, there won't be this big, long gap of...
Oh, yeah, because I'm amazing at what I do. But Hoops Weiss is just a mountain of sport. I mean, I could have took like his whole night. I had questions like, what did you think about this? Because he's done Olympics.
But you know
NBA,
what?
and, I mean,
when we get into the post basketball portion of the year, that's when we bring him back and ask about all the different sports. Just like if we ever took up an interest in soccer, we'd ask Mike DeCourcy back for that.
Right. And you can see at the bottom of the screen, follow Hoops Weiss on Twitter at Hoops Weiss.
WEISS, in case you need spelling.
Yes. And I mean, he's just wonderful on Twitter too. And he's just super humble, just experienced. He knows what, and if you look at his, that wasn't like a jab or nothing. If you look at his Twitter handle, it says, "I've covered sports. I've covered college basketball for 8,000 years." Because you were like, "What? What do you?"
Well, like I'm thinking, that's kind of like you're old.
No, not at all.
Well, see, like somebody tell me, like, well, what's the first Kentucky team you really remember following? And I go, Dan Issel.
Right.
So,
right.
Louis Dampier.
Hoops Weiss is awesome. I recommend everyone follow him on Twitter. Super awesome.
I'm going to say he's written a book with Rick Pitino. He's written a book with Cal.
Yeah.
Refuse to Lose.
Yeah.
He's written a book about Dick Vitale, which, if Dick Vitale is not narrating, could probably be quite fascinating.
Right. Right.
Actually, I've read parts of that book, and it's very interesting because Dick Vitale, if he would ever shut up.
And Hoops Weiss also claims that his wife is the best editor that he has ever worked with. Is that one of those things that's like, that you have to say? Or
I don't think it's one of those things you have to say, but I think that it's one of those things, if you want to remain married, you should actually acknowledge.
Right. Right.
If I were married to a writer and I would read their work, I would hope that they would take my critiques and understand, because I wouldn't want to hurt them.
Right.
I would want them only to put forth their best work. And if I think something's this, that, or the other, I'll tell. I've got a trivia question for you. And I'm proud to say I knew this one without anything. I mean, it was just like, I know it. But I think
I'm
you
not
might.
Gonna know it. I'm not going to know it now.
I'm thinking it might not be because first off, it goes to 1980.
No. I was 4. I was 4 years old in 80.
But if you have, you should have at least heard of this person over the years.
Okay.
It's the Kentucky alumnus who won the 1980 National League Gold Glove Award for second base. I will also tell you his uniform number was 23. And he was from Lexington, Kentucky, I do believe. Okay, well,
Yeah.
we can hear the hamster wheel needs grease because it was running. Doug Flynn.
I knew that name was in my head too. Oh man, and you know why? Which is crazy, but his name was in my head, and for some reason, I had the book "Bluegrass Conspiracies" in my head for some reason, and but I couldn't bring his name out. But yeah, that's who I was actually thinking.
See, there we go.
I really was. I know.
But see, this is how Jay will.
No.
We'll try to lay claim to being right.
If I wasn't really thinking that, I would say, no, I'm just kidding. I really wasn't. But that name was in my head. And like I said, I was thinking the book Bluegrass Conspiracies, and I couldn't bring his name out. But yes.
I just absolutely, I was so excited because, being a big Reds fan growing up, to me, it was so exciting to have a local guy get signed by the Reds.
Right.
And so I kind of had a vet, and I was like, oh, he's just, please let him do good. Please let him do good. Please let him do good. And then he did way better than anybody expected that he, not saying that they expected him to fail, but they expected him to be a solid player, but he turned out to be beyond a solid player. He was exceptional. Besides the fact, like in 1980, I was young then.
Yeah.
And man, he was good looking. Oh, anyhow, well, he was. By the way, the women's team, they are at Auburn this evening. It's halftime, and they lead 40-32.
Nice. Do we got some players back, or players still out? Players still hurt?
I think Ryan Howard may still be out. I tell you what, I give them a whole heck of a lot of credit.
Yeah.
Playing the other night and pulling out. They did pull out the win, did they not?
Yeah. Yes, they did.
And they were really shorthanded.
Yeah.
And they just, and a lot of teams, because, we got some COVID stuff. I don't know. I think they have 1 or 2 COVID related, I'm thinking.
Yeah. Contact tracing.
Yeah. So, that could have given them an out.
Yeah.
Just going to keep right on playing, plug right on through. We have, sadly, more basketball games coming up.
That's not sadly. You gotta cheer your team on, and look on Twitter for my crazy predictions, because I'm gonna have one this Saturday that's gonna blow everyone's mind. A crazy prediction, and it's gonna come true, or I'm gonna be within 1 or 2, because I'm always on point. Anyway, shout out to Hoops Weiss. Follow him on Twitter. Man, what a great guy. What a mountain of knowledge he has to share. Great stuff on Twitter. Everything. Like he's pulling up teams. I'm like, what? Wow. But he's a great follow.
And he was very kind not to put too much time on the shot of 92.
Yeah.
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 And recognizing that, yes, that what happened with the Minu Timber. And that was it. Nothing happened. It was like, Ugh, that's one time I wish we'd had social media, because we would have had that thing trend point that those refs would have had to have never officiated another game in their lives. And Christian Layton Ward had to run away with his head buried between his legs.
Wow.
Because he should be that embarrassed. Anyhow, you can follow us, our show, at Rockin' KY Blue. That's Rockin' KY Blue all together. No spaces, no nothing. It should be. Let's tell me wherever I get my podcast. Just search Rockin' KY Blue podcast. We don't have podcast on our name because, well, there's not room for that. You're telling me that, Jay, but really,
I'm just saying, direct your attention down here too for the podcast.
Well, except that you don't have our username on any of that. So I'm just saying.
KY Blue.
I know I had to say it, and you were pointing. I'm like, why are you pointing? Because it's not on the little trailer thing there.
All right.
Then there's the wrong Jay Hayes, who is JHAZZEKY on Twitter, or JAYHAZZEKY on Instagram. We're not even doing short things because his is stupid. I'm at Forever Big Blue, or I'm Michelle Golfs a Lot on Instagram. Haven't golfed a lot for over a year, so that name needs to change, or I need to golf more. Could be a good week. Women's gymnastics, they beat number 8 Auburn last week. They're having a match at Missouri tomorrow. So you can follow them. They're usually on the SEC Network. If not on the SEC Network, you can find them on SEC Network Plus. As for us, we do get out. We do go places, not many. But wherever we go and whatever we do,
we're always rocking Kentucky Blue.
Thanks for listening to the Rockin' Kentucky Blue podcast. You can find us on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, Radio Public, or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to stop by and leave us a rating and review. And tune in next time for another episode of Rockin' Kentucky Blue.